We did it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And since we did the fruit thing, I've been really on watermelon. One of the ones that you picked.
Yeah.
Dude, the watermelon this year, I don't know if it's just this year.
It hits different. It's built different, dude. I'm serious.
It honestly hits
the
different.
watermelon this year is phenomenal.
I have not had a bad watermelon.
Me neither.
This
I
year.
Seriously have not.
Every single one has
Even
slapped.
the worst watermelon I've had this year is like, this is probably the best one I had last year.
Yeah, it's the best one I've had in my life.
Yeah.
This is not even top 3 this year, and it's already the best I've ever had before this year.
Oh, there's something different in the water this year.
I'm serious. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sun's favorite football podcast. That's right.
Like the band?
That thing in the sky.
Oh.
Is there a band called the Suns?
More than likely.
Okay, fair enough. I'm joined once again, obviously, by my illustrious producer, Joe Teason. How's it going, Joe?
It's super good. Super well. It's a bright, sunny day. It's probably -4 outside. So
it's not warm. You look outside and you're like, oh, it's probably pretty good. And it's not.
I think the wind is going at least 103 kilometers an hour at this point.
I had a basketball outside and it's gone.
Really?
Yeah, it's gone.
Wow.
I'm not even going to try to look for it because it's just disappeared. My hammock is upside down outside. It's a mess. It's been just windy and miserable here lately. So we miss the sun. The sun misses us because it's the sun's favorite football podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that I brought it up is because last weekend, after we had recorded, it was on Saturday. No, sorry, on Monday. Monday, you and I, we went shooting. I bought a gun. I bought a gun recently.
Oh my goodness!
Just because of toxic masculinity, we went and did some shooting, some clay shooting and such, skeet shooting. For those who don't know what clay shooting is. And boy, oh boy, did Joe and I get sunburnt.
We were out there for hours.
Mm-hmm.
We were out there shooting in the sun for hours and hours. I've never had a sunburn quite that painful.
Really,
it was like, and I know why. It's because last year it was our first COVID summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not do a whole lot. I did not get sunburnt. I don't think I got sunburnt once last summer. And this summer, last week or on Monday, I got so sunburnt. It was like for 3 days, I just was in excruciating pain. And now my neck is peeling. I look like a leprosy victim.
like a leper.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was rough. I got Joe was so bad, and then
you were a lot more red than I was, but I was in a lot more pain than you were.
I think I just was coping with it. I think a little bit better than you.
Okay, what is that supposed to mean?
No,
jerk.
Like you said that you didn't get sunburned. I get sunburned once really bad at the beginning of every summer.
Yeah.
That's a constant for me.
Oh.
Me and my wife, we're both very fair skinned. Our boy is just in for a rough life, I think. So this happens to me every year. So this was like a really bad. Don't get me wrong. This sunburn was bad and it was painful. Like sleeping was so horrible. And then you get to the point where you need to take a shower. Oh my gosh. Takes all the fun out of taking a shower.
Are you kidding me? I could not wait to go home and have a shower.
But a cold shower?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the thing. I can't take a cold shower.
Well, grow a pair and then have a cold shower because that feels so good on a fresh sunburn. Like a nice cold shower.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be cold, just not like warm and hot like you usually would.
No, I try to make it as hot as possible still. I have to take hot showers. And that hurts a lot.
I can imagine. You're making it worse,
you have a
probably.
3rd-degree burn on your arms and your face and your neck. And on my calves. That's
calves. My calves are pretty burned as well.
That hurt. And there was a point where I went to work with the calves just burnt. And then I was wearing pants all day. And at the end of the day, I got home and it literally felt like my calves were cramping because they were hurting so bad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. That was a tough sunburn. Not the worst I've ever had, surprisingly.
Oh, wow.
Worst I ever had was on my honeymoon. So that was romantic.
That was nice.
My wife and I went and did some snorkeling, and we weren't allowed to put on sunscreen because we didn't want to hurt the coral reef.
So instead, you have skin cancer now.
Instead, we're dead. We got, oh my gosh. Like I said, my wife and I are just so fair-skinned, like about as white as they come. And goodness gracious, we were so sunburnt. We both on our backs. It was mostly just on the back. So, thank God for that. It was just mostly the back. but also that sucks that it was mostly the back because you couldn't lay down on your back, and we were just laying down on our honeymoon. It was one of our last days there in Mexico. It was like we were purple. We were so sunburnt. Like it was brutal, and it was just so. We were just take turns like rubbing each other with like aloe vera.
Oh dear.
Not in a sexy way either.
Not like a honeymoon romantic way. This was aloe vera. Okay.
Yeah, this was.
There's nothing sexy about aloe vera.
That is probably the least sexy thing.
Yeah.
Is that jelly aloe vera?
Oh dear.
I don't think it gets less sexy than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sunburns, they hurt.
Yeah. Funny. Me and my wife. We met when we were 13 or 14. We met when we were, I think, 12 or 13, but we didn't we started getting more serious.
Obviously, yeah.
We were like 14, so. But when we were 14, the first conversation we actually had together, first time we actually talked to each other, was about sunburns.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah.
And how'd that go?
So bad, so awkward. I was such an awkward kid. And she was shy and I was very awkward. so it was pretty bad. And she was saying she doesn't get burnt very bad, and I was like, yeah, I don't get burnt really bad either, but when I do, it's like pretty bad, and usually like I peel, like my skin peels and stuff. That's what I said.
That was the conversation.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I don't really burn. I just mostly tan. Like everybody says.
Yeah, that's like like something that you would say when you're a young kid and you think that that's how adults talk, and like that's like something that you would say to like sound mature.
Yeah,
that's great. I don't really burn, but I sometimes burn, and then I peel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Relatable.
Hook, line, and sinker with that one.
Yeah,
and now she's pregnant.
Yeah, I knocked her up. So
yeah. That's all it is,
Yeah.
folks. Kids listening at home, that's all you got to do.
Yeah. Oh, another big news. I felt my baby kick for the first time yesterday.
Incredible. That's awesome.
I cried.
I cried. He was actually crying before this.
You're talking about it a bit, just bawling.
Yeah. Joe and I were just embracing each other, crying.
Yeah.
My kid is here, so I feel him kick quite often now. Very violently. But no, that's incredible. That's awesome, man. That's like, that's a big moment.
Overjoyed.
Yeah.
Who knows? Could have been a punch, but I don't know.
Either way, could have been an elbow. Could have been a head even at this point. That's crazy. That's why the first time it's like, wow, there's really a person in there. Like, at the beginning, it's kind of like this is a little blob. Like you can't even tell what's going on.
Yeah.
And when it starts to like kick and move, and then you go ahead and have an ultrasound, it's like it looks like a person.
Yeah.
And then it's moving around. Like my son was kicking like crazy in the ultrasound. And it's like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah.
Like
that's real.
Yeah. This is a real thing. That's a real person. Even now, looking at him, it's like this is a real person with like a soul, and like this is like, it's incredible. It's something else, all right.
Are you crying?
Sorry, just getting a little choked up. I actually had a burp. I'm not crying.
It's good.
But yeah, in the theme with our horrible, just terrible sunburns that we had today, we're bringing back our draft segment. That's right. We're going to draft summer activities.
Yes.
Things that we like to do in the summer, because we couldn't come up with any other ideas, but we wanted to do a draft. So stay tuned for that, and we're doing that as soon as it gets cold outside here. It was like so nice for like weeks and weeks, and now it's miserable outside.
Well, weeks and weeks is a little bit of an exaggeration. I would say 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. Yeah, because I remember at the beginning of my paternity leave, it was also miserable.
Yes.
So that's what it's like living in, people are like, oh, I love living in Canada because of the seasons. I was like, I understand that. That makes sense. I just don't want them all in the same week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have, I think exactly where we live is the perfect place where we have all of the worst, the extremes of the seasons. Like we have it really cold in the winters and like burning hot in the summers. Like we're right perfectly there.
Yeah, and it's, it's hard. It's tough, but...
It's tough where I live, honestly.
Where I come from.
Where I grew up.
You wouldn't honestly survive on these streets.
Yeah.
They're tough here.
The streets raised me here.
The streets raised me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyways, we're going to talk football at some point today as well. We're going to talk one big question for every team in the NFC. We talked about the AFC last week. I'm going to do the NFC this week. No news today. Honestly, there's not that much going on. I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty slow season. There is some stuff I could talk about. I'm just not really in the mood. If I'm being totally honest, football is at a super slow point right now. I'm not totally motivated to talk about football right now. So that's why we're throwing in a draft at the end of the podcast. We're going to talk a little football. There's still some stuff I'm excited to talk about. And football is still, just around the corner. But it's kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, maybe I'll just take a little bit of a breather. So we might venture out into different territories as far as this podcast goes, as far as not talking just football, but just talking life, talking Joe's baby kicking, talking terrible sunburns and stuff like that. But we will talk football. I'll go through the NFC version of the One Big Question series the 2-part series that I've been doing here on the podcast. But Joe, I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about before we jump into football. That's a no.
No, yeah,
Sorry,
basically no.
Okay, this part doesn't have to be on the podcast.
Why not?
Because I made it awkward. I was just going to pause, yeah.
No, it's fine.
Okay, fair enough. So then without further ado, why don't we just jump right into football? Why is the sky blue? What are sunburns? Where do babies come from? These are all questions that don't have answers.
That's good.
Some teams in the NFL, and by some teams, I mean every single team in the NFL still have questions that have yet to be answered. They're hoping that these questions can be answered. We went through the AFC last week's episode, and this week we're going through the NFC. We're going to start things off in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers, the defending NFC North champions. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game last year and only to fall to the eventual Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And my question for the Green Bay Packers is, what does Aaron Rodgers need? That's their biggest question. That's the question that they need to ask themselves. That's the question that they need to answer, because you need to do everything in your power to bring back Aaron Rodgers. I talked about a few weeks ago how I thought, Rodgers was being a little bit, diva-ish with some of his demands and just being so upset, even though he has one of the best rosters in football. However, the Green Bay Packers cannot let this guy go. You cannot let him be upset for much longer. You have Jordan Love, who you drafted. I don't think anybody thinks, not even inside the Packers organization, thinks that he's ready to go this next year. There's rumors coming out that he looks better at training camp. Fine. He's not one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. So you need to do what you need to do to make him happy. If you're the Green Bay Packers, if you're Brian Gutekunst, if you're anybody inside that front office there in Green Bay, what can you do to make him happy? Because the easy way to put it is, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you're a Super Bowl contender. We've seen them in the NFC Championship for back-to-back seasons now. You're a Super Bowl contender with Aaron Rodgers. Without Aaron Rodgers, no matter how good your roster is, and I talked about how it's one of the best rosters in the NFL, that doesn't matter. A team like Denver, who Rodgers is rumored to potentially go to in a trade, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL, I think. And we talked about this last week. But it doesn't matter because they don't have the quarterback. They're not a Super Bowl contender because they don't have the quarterback. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play football. You have to do everything you can do to make him happy. Even if it's, Brian Gutekunst and him don't seem to get along. Even if Brian Gutekunst has to make, a sacrifice. Even if you don't want to work with him, you don't like him, you have to make a sacrifice. You have to be, okay, I'm going to be a little upset with Aaron Rodgers at times, but he's really good at what he does. Why not be a little bit upset and win Super Bowls potentially, then have to start all over with Jordan Love? And I think a really interesting thing that they could potentially do is trade for Julio Jones. Why not try to trade for Julio Jones? Why not give him a peace offering? That could be the one thing that Aaron Rodgers, could see Green Bay do, and he'd go, okay, maybe they're actually trying. Maybe I can come back and do this. Because if you're the Green Bay Packers, you need to do everything possible to keep one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL around. And you need to win more than one Super Bowl with one of the greatest quarterbacks, probably the most talented quarterback to ever play football. It's pretty much him and Patrick Mahomes as like the greatest ones to ever play. So my question for the Green Bay Packers is, what does Aaron Rodgers need? And you need to fill those needs, in my opinion. Next up, we have the second place team from last year in the NFC North, the Chicago Bears. And my biggest question for the Chicago Bears for the 2021 NFL season that still remains is, when will we see Justin Fields? When will we see the rookie quarterback? That's my question for the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton's there. If I had to guess, I would say Andy Dalton's probably the day one starter. That's the way they're talking. It sounds like Andy Dalton is kind of, that job is his to lose at this point. I would guess when they play Los Angeles, the Rams in Los Angeles on week 1 on Sunday Night Football, that Andy Dalton would be the starter for that game. That would be my guess. Who knows? Maybe Justin Fields just shows out in the preseason, shows out in training camp, and he wins that starting job. But if I had to guess, I would say Andy Dalton's going to be that starter. So if he's the starter, at what point does Justin Fields come in? Because Andy Dalton's not good enough to just unequivocally, yep, he's the starter for the entire season. At some point, he's going to struggle. And if he was the only quarterback on the roster that was worthwhile, he could have those struggles. But when you have Justin Fields, who I am extremely high on, and I think he's going to do wonders in the NFL, when you have him sitting behind Andy Dalton, that adds a whole another element. As soon as Andy Dalton starts to struggle, you're going to hear chants from the crowd. You're going to hear the media talk about Justin Fields. At what point does he start that first game? I mean, they have some tough stretches. If you're not going to start him week 1, the start of their schedule is incredibly rough. If you had to pick a game that's not week 1, I would almost say week 2 when they play the Cincinnati Bengals. You would have, Justin Fields versus Joe Burrow, 2 former Ohio State quarterbacks. That would be interesting. Bengals, not that good of a team. The next week after that, you have the Browns, and then you have the Lions. Maybe Lions at home. Maybe that's a potential spot we could see Justin Fields. After that is when their schedule just gets real tough. I mean, they have the Raiders, the Packers, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, the Steelers, and then the Ravens. I mean, that is a tough stretch for any rookie quarterback to come in and play. You might think maybe after that is when we see Justin Fields. I'm just curious, do they just throw him in the fire? If all of a sudden Andy Dalton's struggling and we're in the middle of that tough stretch, do they just say, all right, throw him in the fire? Or do they look for a spot that's maybe an easier opponent? The Dolphins didn't do this last year with Tua Tagovailoa. They threw him in against the best defense in football, the Los Angeles Rams, and he struggled early. And you could argue that maybe that was the reason why he struggled throughout his rookie season. Maybe he just didn't have that confidence right from the beginning, because on his first drive of his career, Aaron Donald came in and caused a fumble, and he lost a fumble on the first drive of his career. You could argue that, throwing a guy in the fire like that is not good for confidence. So at what point do you start the kid? I think week 2 would be fine. It would be tough to start him in that stretch. I mean, those are a tough stretch of games for Chicago right there. And just another question is, like, how is this roster good enough for him to come in and just be really good from the beginning? I've said it all along. I like Justin Fields. I think he's gonna, make a ton of people regret not taking him. I just don't see very many downsides with Justin Fields. I think he's an incredible athlete, an incredible quarterback prospect, and I think he's gonna make so many teams regret not taking him. There were so many teams that could have taken him, but you got to ask, is he ready to play right now? Is he ready to come and make an impact? Can they be a playoff team with him? I would say they're just as likely to be a playoff team with him as they are with Andy Dalton. But my biggest question for Chicago is, when do you pull the trigger? When do you bring in Justin Fields? We know he's not going to sit the whole first season. No rookies do that anymore. We haven't seen that since Patrick Mahomes. And that was already a rarity. That just does not happen anymore. So at what point do we see Justin Fields? Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. And my big question for the Minnesota Vikings is, which version of Kirk Cousins are we going to be getting this year? And this is a question that we can ask probably every single year since Kirk Cousins has been in the NFL, whether it's with Washington or with Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, he needs to play more consistent for this Vikings team to be good. Last year, he started out really bad. I mean, his stats and just overall games through the first few games of the season were terrible. If you look at his game splits, especially the game against Indianapolis, I think he threw 3 interceptions in that game. No touchdowns, barely threw for 100 yards. And there was just some games where he looked absolutely awful. And the Minnesota Vikings got off to a terrible start to last season. I think they started out 0-3, and then I think they went 1-5 to start things off, and then ended up winning some games on the stretch to finish 7-9. And that's when Kirk Cousins started to play better. If you look at some of his games down the stretch, he played really well. I mean, he had a ton of games where he threw for 300, 400 yards and just played well. And you'd expect him to do that more often when you have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, guys like that. You need a more consistent Kirk Cousins. And they went out and got Kellen Mond now in the second round as a guy to kind of maybe push Kirk Cousins a little bit. Kirk, I think that's a sign. Kirk doesn't have as, long of a leash anymore. His leash got a little shorter, and you need to see more out of Kirk Cousins. I'm convinced if you got a really good quarterback on this team, they could be the best team in football just because of the skill group that they have with Dalvin Cook in his prime, Justin Jefferson coming off an incredible rookie season, Adam Thielen still one of the best receivers in football. I mean, just an incredible group of players. Regardless of, the defense is maybe not what it once was. Their offensive line is not great. It's not terrible, I guess. I mean, they did draft the rookie there in the first round, but Kirk, if he wants to be there longer, he's got to do more with what he has, and he has a lot. As far as there would be people like Aaron Rodgers would dream of having the skill positions he has. So my biggest question for Kirk is for the Vikings is for Kirk, and it's, can he just be more consistent? What version of him are we getting? Are we getting the version that struggles against Indianapolis, or are we getting the version where he plays really well down the stretch and they win most of their games down the stretch? We need to see that for a full season with Kirk Cousins. Moving on to the final team in the NFC North, it's the Detroit Lions, a team that tore it down this last year and looks to be in a rebuilding path with new head coach Dan Campbell and new GM there, whose name I can't remember right now. But my big question for the Detroit Lions is, can Jared Goff really be the guy? They seem to be talking about Jared Goff as if he is the guy, like he's the future. They seem to be talking about Jared Goff as, we didn't just trade for him to get those extra first-round picks. We traded for him because we believed in him. Whether or not that's true, I think we'll find out. I do find it interesting that they passed on Justin Fields in the draft. They passed on Mac Jones, but mostly Justin Fields. I think this season is going to be telling for if Jared Goff is going to be there in the future. And it might not be fair because they don't have a very good roster. Their skill position players are probably among the worst we've ever seen on an NFL team. If you go through the receivers that they have on their roster, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Hang on while I pull it up 1 second. If you look at the receivers, some of their starters are guys like Brashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams, who can't stay healthy to save his life, Quintez Cephas, who's not a popular player, Geronimo Allison, who couldn't make it in Green Bay, Sage Surratt, who they just drafted, Amon-Ra St. Brown, also just drafted, Khalif Raymond, who didn't do a whole lot in Tennessee, Victor Bolden Jr. I mean, none of these guys, Damian Ratley, like, who are these guys? Most of these guys are people that nobody, casual fans of the NFL could not even name. Jared Goff does not have very much as far as receiving talent goes. He doesn't have what Kirk Cousins has. One thing he does have, though, is a decent offensive line. They have a pretty good offensive line that they bolstered by taking Penei Sewell in the draft. Maybe that could help him. Maybe they can, help the fact that he doesn't have any receivers with the fact that his offensive line is actually quite good, probably one of the better units in the NFC. Maybe that is enough for him to have a good enough season where they go, hey, maybe we can actually build around Jared Goff. Can they get the best out of the number one overall pick? I would tend to say that if Sean McVay, one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL, didn't want to work with him, didn't want to, couldn't get the best out of him anymore, I don't know if the Detroit Lions can do that. But you never know. I think if Justin Fields turns out to be as good as I think he's going to be, in that division, the same division as Detroit, and they don't. Jared Goff is not the guy. They can't find a guy in the draft. They go back to how they always are. There's going to be a lot of questions as to why. Why did you not take Justin Fields? Justin Fields was on the board. You took an offensive lineman. You already had a pretty good offensive line. I understand it's a rebuilding team, but I think if Jared Goff doesn't turn out to be the guy, there could be a ton of questions, especially if in Chicago, in the same division, twice a year, you get to see Justin Fields tearing up the NFL like I think that he could. So my biggest question is, can Jared Goff be the guy? Do they want Jared Goff to be the guy in Detroit? Moving on to the NFC South, and it's the New Orleans Saints first up. They won the NFC South last year. They lost, however, to the team that came second in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who would go on, like we said, to win the Super Bowl. They no longer have Drew Brees. Drew Brees is no longer there. We're going to see a lot of changes. They were a team that had no cap room. They had negative, I think, over $100 million in cap space going into this NFL offseason. They did a pretty good job clearing up that cap space. Jameis Winston is back there at the quarterback position. Taysom Hill is back. They seem to be competing for that starting quarterback position. My question for the New Orleans Saints is, how good is Sean Payton's system really? How good is it really? Now that you don't have a generational quarterback, one of the greatest we've ever seen, numbers-wise, there's really no one that compares to Drew Brees, numbers-wise. I tweeted a little while back that the efficiency of the offense, the Drew Brees, Sean Payton offense, is almost underrated, is underappreciated. And they were dominant for years. I mean, it was basically a college football system, like just an air raid offense, putting up insane numbers. And now, can Sean Payton bring that out of Jameis Winston? I'm going to assume that Jameis Winston's going to be the starter. I know Taysom Hill is there, but I don't think if they were sold on Taysom Hill, I don't think they would have brought back Jameis Winston. If they were sold on Taysom Hill, I don't think Jameis Winston would have been there last year. So I think in the end, Jameis Winston's going to be the starter. And Jameis Winston's a guy who struggled with turnovers. He had 30 interceptions his last season starting in the NFL for the Buccaneers. Can Sean Payton get the best out of him? Can he turn him around? If he can, then Sean Payton, he's in that conversation, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I mean, if his system just flawlessly goes from Drew Brees to Jameis Winston, are we going to be talking about how incredible Sean Payton and his system is? They were so great for so many years, but that was with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Can he bring that with the quarterbacks that he has now? Can he fix Jameis Winston's turnovers? If you look at Drew Brees' career, he had a high interception numbers quite a few times throughout his career, but as it got later into his career, they were able to fix that. And Sean Payton and Drew Brees did a good job, I think, working on cutting down turnovers and just the efficiency of that offense. And I'm curious to see if this offense can still be as dominant as they have been for years under Jameis Winston. Moving on to the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And my big question for the defending champs is, can you run it back? You could ask this question about every team that won the Super Bowl, but even more so does it apply this year to the Buccaneers, because they are legitimately running it completely back. All 22 starters, offense and defense, are back from last year. They're running it completely back, trying to win a Super Bowl with the exact same roster, banking on the fact that now chemistry is going to be better. They're going to be playing like they did at the end of last season, not at the beginning. And I think that's a question. Is there going to be complacency? I think you can see this with Super Bowl teams sometimes. Guys get complacent. We already won a Super Bowl. Some guys cannot get motivated. Now Tom Brady, who's their quarterback, is one of the greatest or the greatest ever at not getting complacent, not being satisfied with a Super Bowl, not being satisfied with 3 Super Bowls, not being satisfied with 6 Super Bowls. I mean, he's never satisfied. So definitely having that presence, I think, is going to help a ton, because he's just never satisfied. So, you can avoid maybe that complacency. Will there be like more selfishness? Players, they have their Super Bowl ring now. Now they're like, okay, now I want to get my numbers up. Now I want to get paid. And we didn't see players just want to go get paid from other teams this off season. So maybe they have that figured out as well. But I think they're banking on chemistry. I think it'll be interesting to see if they're just completely dominant this season because of that chemistry. I think talent-wise, they're probably one of, if not the best team in the NFL. I mean, just pure talent. So if that chemistry is true and they can carry over that high from the Super Bowl and not have a Super Bowl hangover, they could very well run it back. But every single year, it looks like the Super Bowl team is primed to run it back. They're going to be a dynasty, and it's easier said than done. No team has won back-to-back Super Bowls since Tom Brady's Patriots in the early 2000s. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers, my big question for Carolina is, can Sam Darnold be salvaged? We saw it just did not work in New York with Sam Darnold. You can talk about having incredibly bad luck with Adam Gase, one of the worst head coaches we've ever seen in the history of the NFL, come in. It's hard to succeed in Adam Gase's system. We've seen players leave that system and succeed incredibly. Guys like Ryan Tannehill, Kenyon Drake, Devontae Parker. As soon as Adam Gase left, those guys flourished. Those guys played incredible. Can Sam Darnold have that same thing happen to him in Carolina? They seem to be convinced that he can be the guy. They, like the Lions, passed on Justin Fields. They passed on Mac Jones, who that coaching staff coached in the Senior Bowl. So, they pass on these young quarterbacks because they're confident Sam Darnold's going to be the guy. Now, can his career be salvaged? There might not be too many better places that it could happen. Matt Rule's proved that he is a fairly good NFL coach. We don't know too much about him, but that offense was good at times with Teddy Bridgewater last year. They have offensive talent. They have DJ Moore. They have Robbie Anderson, who played with Darnold in New York. They have Terrace Marshall Jr., who they just drafted. And then you have Christian McCaffrey coming back. There's weapons on this team for Sam Darnold. Weapons like he's never seen with New York. He's never had weapons like this. So my biggest question for the Carolina Panthers is, can you fix him? Can you get the best out of a guy who was at one point seen as a surefire NFL quarterback, like an incredible prospect? Many people thought he'd go first overall in the draft. Can you salvage him? Now on to the final team in the NFC South, and it's the Atlanta Falcons. And my big question for the Falcons is, how good can Kyle Pitts really be? Julio Jones is not going to be there. I think that's obvious at this point. My question could have been, where will Julio Jones end up? But I think at this point, I don't want to give the Falcons that question because I don't think that really applies to them, because I don't think Julio Jones is going to be there. He's not a part of their team in the future. I don't think he'll be there by the time the season starts. So the thing that I'm most intrigued about on the Falcons is Kyle Pitts. I mean, people seem to be convinced that he's going to be this generational wide receiver / tight end, something like we've never seen before. He's got the body of a tight end, but he plays like a wide receiver. He's incredibly athletic. People basically putting him in the Hall of Fame at this point. My question is, how good can he really be? I'm just intrigued. I'm not saying that he can't be good. I'm not saying that people are overrating him, but I'm just curious if he can live up to the hype. And in that offense with Julio Jones now, it's opening up for him to have an incredible rookie season. Him and Calvin Ridley, there's a lot of targets that are going to be gone when Julio Jones gets traded. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on that rookie. So I'm just really curious to see how good Kyle Pitts really can be in Atlanta. Next up, we have the Washington football team. And my biggest question for the Washington football team is, not their name. I was going to say, what's their name going to be? But we still won't know that for another year. My biggest question for them is Fitzmagic or Fitztragic. Technically, you could say that's two questions, but I'm going to say that it's just one because it's my podcast and I make the rules. They're a very talented football team. They're probably one of the most talented teams in the NFL, especially their defense. They have a stacked defense. The one position group that you could say that they have a weakness at is the quarterback position. Ryan Fitzpatrick coming there from Miami. He played really, really well at times in Miami, and he played really, really well at times in his career. So well that he's been given the nickname Fitzmagic. But just as quickly as he can become Fitzmagic, he can become Fitztragic. And if you're Washington and you have a team, that's stacked on the defense, you have, incredible weapons on offense. Antonio Gibson, you have Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. You have a team that's really ready to go, ready to win that division, probably the most talented team in that division. You need Fitzmagic, because if you have Fitztragic, it's going to be a rough go. And they're going to be drafting a quarterback again in the upcoming draft. So that's my question for the Washington football team. Next up, we have the New York Giants. And my biggest question for the Giants is, can Daniel Jones take a big leap? Daniel Jones, this is his third season in the NFL. They're another team that has talent. Their defense impressed me last year. I thought they were going to be one of the worst defenses we've ever seen. They ended up playing pretty well. On offense, they have weapons. They brought in Kadarius Toney in the first round of the NFL draft. They brought in Kenny Golladay. They have Saquon Barkley coming back from injury. Darius Slayton's there, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and they brought in Kyle Rudolph. So they have weapons. The biggest problem with Daniel Jones so far in his career has been turnovers. He's turned the ball over. He's shown flashes at times. He's got the talent, and he's sneaky athletic, but the turnovers are what has plagued his career. Through 2 seasons, he's had 22 interceptions and 23 fumbles lost. That's 45 total turnovers from one player compared to 38 touchdowns. Total touchdowns, that's passing and rushing. That's not acceptable for a quarterback. I talked about Jameis Winston. This is what I say when I talk about Jameis Winston, is that turnovers, they're unacceptable, especially to this level, to Daniel Jones' level. You can be a good quarterback, you can have talent, but when you turn the ball over as many times as he does, you cannot be a good quarterback. You cannot lead a team when the other team has the ball so many times and you're at fault for it. So to me, Daniel Jones needs to take a big step. He needs to be who they thought he was going to be when they drafted him. And the Giants, they've got to be hoping this question can be answered with an emphatic yes by the end of the season. Next up is the Dallas Cowboys. They finished last season a little disappointing after the Dak Prescott injury. Dak looks to be ready to go week 1 this season. But my biggest question is not concerning Dak Prescott. It's not concerning that offense at all. I think they have the talent, and I'm excited to see if Dak Prescott can come back and play at the level he was playing at last season. But my biggest question is, can Dan Quinn, the new defensive coordinator there in Dallas, can he fix this defense? This defense was historically bad last season, especially to start the season. They could not stop a nosebleed. They were one of the worst defenses, especially stopping the run. They were incredibly bad. Now you brought in Dan Quinn, the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, the former defensive coordinator for the Legion of Boom in Seattle. Can he bring a little bit of that to Dallas? There's talented players on this defense. There's DeMarcus Lawrence. They brought in Micah Parsons. There's guys on this team. Trayvon Diggs from last year's draft. Can he bring out the best in this team? Because Lord knows they could not have it last year. I mean, their defense was atrocious. And with an offense that will put up probably consistently 30 points every single game, if you can just have an average defense, this team can be a playoff contender. They can be a championship contending team. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. My big question for the Eagles is, can Jalen Hurts be an NFL quarterback? Last season, I talked about how I thought I was impressed by Jalen Hurts. The more I've gone back to look at, the less impressed I am. I don't think he played very well except for that Packers game. I was all for giving him a chance, and I think it's a good idea to give him a chance to be the guy in Philadelphia. And that's what they've done this season. And have they set him up enough to be the guy? The skill position is still not that great. In Philadelphia, they brought in Devontae Smith, who was my favorite receiver in the draft. Jalen Reagor was a complete disaster last year. And just that receiving core in general. Miles Sanders is a fine running back. The offensive line, you need it to be better than it was last year. This is a team that to me looks like they're rebuilding. And the biggest question is Jalen Hurts going to be there for that rebuild? He's been essentially given a season to show them that he can be the guy, that he can be a franchise quarterback. Will they give him a chance? Or, as soon as he struggles, will they put in Joe Flacco, who's the backup quarterback there in Philadelphia? Will they give him a chance? Will he take that opportunity? Will he be an NFL quarterback? That's my biggest question for the Eagles. Up next, we got the Seattle Seahawks. And for me, the biggest question for the Seahawks is, can Russ cook for an entire season? The let Russ cook hashtag was something that took the NFL by storm early on last season when Russell Wilson was playing tremendous. He was an MVP candidate, but as they got to the end of the season, Russell Wilson struggled, and the team struggled, and they kind of just ran out of gas at the end of the season. And you need to see more consistency out of Russell Wilson. Maybe all this trade talk, all this frustration that Russell Wilson has had with Seattle will have sort of an Aaron Rodgers effect, where he becomes angry. He's motivated, and he has an MVP season like we saw with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that happens. I think that's what we need to see happen in Seattle. We need, if they want to be successful, Russell Wilson has to play consistently, and maybe they just need to let him, cook. Maybe they need to build the offense around him. Let him just let it fly, and we'll see if it works. I think this very well could be his last season in Seattle. So, one more opportunity with one of the best young quarterbacks. Well, not young anymore, but one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL to potentially win another Super Bowl. And then next we have the Los Angeles Rams. And my biggest question for the Rams is Stafford the patch that they needed? They got rid of Jared Goff. He's no longer there. Matthew Stafford has taken his place. And I won't lie, I struggled to come up with a question for this team. To me, this might be, the Dallas Cowboys were my team last year that I was all in on in the offseason. And that was an incredible mistake in hindsight. But the Los Angeles Rams, I just fail to see how this team is not going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. I mean, they have a stacked roster, offensively, defensively. There's very few weaknesses on this team. And if Matthew Stafford is all they're cracked up to be, I think this team is going to be a championship contender. With Sean McVay in their calling plays, I think this could go incredibly well. And I'm all in on the Rams, honestly. I think they're going to be a fantastic team. And to me, they just need Matthew Stafford to come in there and give them that extra push. They made the playoffs last year with Jared Goff. They've done pretty well with Jared Goff. They made it to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But they need that next push, and they need to know if Matthew Stafford can give them that next push. And then on to the Arizona Cardinals. My big question for them is, who is Cliff Kingsbury, their head coach? We've seen him now a couple years in the NFL, and he just hasn't shown much for me. There was some hype, some questionable, some people that questioned it quite a bit when he came into the league. Did he deserve that job? And he's been all right. They've improved, through those 2 seasons, but I just haven't seen enough from him, from his offense. He came from that air raid offense in college football where they were just bombing it down the field, and we haven't seen that in the NFL. They haven't been a very good passing game. Kyler Murray's had amazing games at times, and he's a fantastic dual threat quarterback, but I think the passing game needs to take another step this season. And if it doesn't, we could potentially see Cliff Kingsbury as one of the guys on the hot seat. Maybe he isn't there next season. Maybe he, gets fired. I think we need to see more out of Cliff Kingsbury. We need to see who he really is there for the Arizona Cardinals. And then on to the final team, and it's the San Francisco 49ers. And my question for them is, so is Jimmy G really just the starting quarterback? This is confusing for me. For the longest time, it seemed like Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be traded, and everybody was talking like he was going to be traded. They traded up heaven and earth to go up to get their franchise quarterback for the future. They got Trey Lance. They brought him in. There was just rumors that Jimmy Garoppolo was gone. He was going to end up in New England or somewhere, but Jimmy Garoppolo is still there. He didn't take a pay cut. He's still getting paid like $25 million. So is he going to be the starter this season? Is that how this is going to go? Is Trey Lance going to sit out yet another season? He sat out almost the entire season last year in college football. Is that maybe the best way to develop a quarterback, have him sit out for 2 full seasons? Who knows? But to me, the biggest question is still the quarterback position there in San Francisco. Is Jimmy G going to be the starter? Yeah, can Trey Lance take that job? I think it's gonna decide a lot there in San Francisco. Is Trey Lance good enough to come in and lead this team, to the playoffs, lead this team to the Super Bowl? Because that's where Jimmy G led them. So I'm curious to see what happens with Jimmy G there in San Francisco. And that wraps up my one big question for every team in the NFC. Moving on to our final segment, the draft. Obviously, we're going to draft our favorite summertime activities, and we have a little surprise guest, a little uninvited surprise guest. Like, I cannot stress enough how much he was not invited to this. He barged in on our pod. Him and his goonies,
his entourage, if you will,
busted into our podcast room. It's our good buddy Rudy Thiessen. I don't know if we've even talked about him on the podcast.
I have talked about him once.
Okay,
once or twice.
I think we should talk about him more because he's an interesting man. But
yeah.
Rudy, Rudy, how's it going, my friend?
Oh my goodness! Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I feel honored.
Okay,
this is great.
Okay, like I said, not invited.
Yeah, well, you know what? I gotta say thank you to myself for inviting me. You know, this feels really good.
Anybody you want to shout out?
Yeah, my boy Justin. You know, for driving. You know, he's the whip. You know, driving us around.
Yeah, for sure.
I got my boy Henry in the back. You know, he's the DJ.
Yeah,
he's vibing it up.
Okay. He left. Okay, very good. Yeah. We started this segment with Rudy. We're recording with 3 microphones. Joe broke it, so we're only using 2 right now. So it's gonna have to be a lot of switching back and forth. Rudy's also making us stand up for this part.
Yeah, I just wanted to switch the vibe up. You know, like I think you feel more at home or at ease when you're standing.
Yeah, it definitely is a different feeling. I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Joe, I don't know.
I think that's exactly the opposite. Why would you want to stand? I think that just makes you more nervous.
Yeah, it does make you
standing up. You're like fidgeting. And
kind of feels like you're doing a presentation in school or something.
Yeah, no, it's like public speaking now. Yeah. It's not like a podcast. Like public speaking.
Like it's supposed to be relaxed. Rudy comes in immediately, makes us.
I hate public
as
speaking.
little relaxed as possible.
This is good.
Rudy,
good.
Before we get into the draft, you're joining us for the draft. We're gonna do a 3-way draft here. Or are you down? You're done. Very good. Why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about you? Like I said, we don't talk about you.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna introduce myself.
What do you mean? We need to know who you are.
Can I intro him?
Yeah, Joe, you intro him. Fine.
So Rudy and I have a really special relationship. I've known Rudy for about like 2.5, 3 years now. 3 years maybe. Yeah. So basically, Rudy and I were roommates, and they were roommates. For about a month before I got married. I moved out, and then Rudy moved in with me. Rudy and I lived together for a month, and he made me work out with him.
We were so much more than just roommates.
Yeah. You know? He made me diet with him.
Yeah.
He caught me eating brownies when I shouldn't have been.
In your bed, right? You were shirtless
in
your bed.
I was shirtless in my bed, and Rudy caught me eating brownies late at night.
He held you accountable.
Yeah.
Really?
And yeah, that's Rudy. I don't know.
What an incredible man.
He's an incredible man.
What can you say about Rudy that hasn't already been said?
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy, just a positive energy, a disruptor. Yeah. You know, he comes in, he disrupts the status quo.
Yeah.
You know,
Rudy loves attention.
Yeah, loves it.
I feed off it.
Feed off attention.
Sure,
I don't know what the audio is going to be like with Rudy just
with Rudy talking in the background.
Screaming in the background. But why don't we get into the draft?
We're going to do 2.
What? Are we doing?
Should we do 2
picks? Yes.
Rather than 3?
Yeah.
So
instead of having 3 draft picks like we usually do, we're gonna do 2 draft. Rudy, do you understand how a draft works?
Dude, yeah. Maybe for the audience, like explain it, like just for them.
Yeah,
like I know how it works.
So basically, this is how it works. Usually we would flip a coin because there's 2 of us, but like I said, Rudy ruins almost everything. Yeah. I'm just kidding, Rudy. I love you. We're not gonna flip a coin. I think we're just gonna let Rudy go first because he's our guest. So Rudy's our guest. Basically, what you're gonna do, we're picking summertime activities, things that are fun to do in the summertime. You know, because it's been so miserable outside the last few days. Yeah. We miss summer. So you know, just you can keep it vague, or you can you can go more specific. You can
be extremely specific.
Specific. Rudy. So no pressure, but the first pick is all yours. You and I. You know.
Oh man.
Basically, I don't even know if I explained it, but basically, you're gonna pick your favorite one. Then it's gonna be, let's say, then we'll flip a coin to see who goes second. And then Joe will pick, or I will pick, and then, you know, so on and so forth. We'll do it twice.
Tails?
Okay.
All right.
Heads.
Tails, heads. I'm going to say tails never fails. So I'm going to pick tails. And it went sideways. Impossible. This is not a real coin, by the way.
Oh.
Heads?
Heads it is.
All right. So I will be picking last. Rudy, you got the first pick in the draft. What are you going with? Your favorite summertime activity?
This is my favorite. This isn't just like a random, you know, activity you do?
No, yeah, this is something that you like. Or you're trying to build a team of really solid summertime activities.
Okay. Is this like something we can do right now, like considering the time period?
No,
or like,
you mean COVID?
Yeah, COVID.
No, in this. Yeah, in this exactly. Very good. In this version of reality, there's no COVID.
No COVID exists.
Yeah, this is pre-COVID.
All right, for sure. All right, well, I'm gonna keep it simple. All right.
Okay.
Who doesn't love beach volleyball? Boom.
Beach volleyball.
What's wrong with that?
The first pick in the draft.
That's good, right?
Yeah, explain it to us. Why do you like why are you going with beach volleyball?
What's not to like? You know what I'm talking about? You're at the beach, you get hot, you go in the water, you cool down, you come back out. You know, there's no rules really. Besides like the volleyball rules.
Besides the rules of the volleyball.
No, but like you can be reckless, you know? You got sand you can jump into, the diving, it's super fun. I love it.
Yeah, it is sort of a different vibe than normal volleyball. Playing volleyball on a hard ground. You know, you can not wear a shirt.
There you go. Shirtless
you cannot wear
always
pants.
an option. Yeah.
You cannot wear underwear. What? Sorry.
You can
mean, you're on the sand. I mean, it's a different vibe, beach volleyball. How many times would you say you've played beach volleyball?
Oh, man. Honestly, not enough. That would be my answer.
Enough.
So
very good.
Yeah.
That's a solid first pick. Solid first pick.
Right.
Joe, you're next up. I'm curious to know what your first pick in the summertime activities draft is.
Okay, so basically this is something that I've gotten into recently, like the past summer, mostly because Justin introduced me to it, or I started going with Justin.
Dang, I didn't know you were going to pick this.
You didn't think so, eh?
Yeah.
And it's golfing.
Ooh.
I love golfing. I'm not good at it, but it's the most fun you can have without,
with your clothes on.
Or
clothes off, like we discussed with beach volleyball.
Also true.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I enjoy good golf. You go and you rent a cart, you have some brews with your buddies, and then you just,
What's better than that? I mean, golf is like the one sport that seemingly everybody plays. And it's like, even you don't have to be athletic.
No, that's the best part. It takes no.
You don't really get that tired. You can drink beers. You can just hang out with the boys. None of us are very good at all, except for our buddy Justin, who's in the background right now.
Hey, he's good.
Like we said earlier, premium stuff.
Only premium.
Products from Justin, and also premium quality. I'm talking
par.
Yes.
You ever heard
par
of it?
for course,
Par
baby.
for the course.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm talking
That's
about.
right. That's
Golfing
right.
was definitely on my list. You definitely stole one of my picks. I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about golfing before I go. Okay, then I think I'm going to steal one of yours. I think this is something that you really enjoy. I'm going to say bonfires.
Oh.
Yeah, that was not one of yours. But I'm going to say bonfires. I
love it.
nothing like a good bonfire. You know?
That's all you need.
Yeah.
If you want to have a good time and just let the conversation flow, you put a fire in a circle, and that's the end of it.
We actually currently have one in this room right now.
A bonfire.
Yeah, a bonfire in the middle of.
I smell it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's right there. I don't know how you do. But no, I think that's how podcasts were created, just conversations around a bonfire.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I think if you could bottle that up and put it into a podcast, that would be some of the best podcasts, is just bonfires.
New idea for a podcast?
Dude, bonfire cast.
Bonfire cast?
The Bon cast.
It could be called Pitted.
Pitted.
Huh?
All right.
I like that.
Well,
That's
we'll
good.
workshop it. We'll definitely work on it.
I don't think it needs any work. That's
Okay.
it.
No,
It's
we'll discuss it.
I'll copyright it.
Well, it's just like this is your first time on the podcast.
No, I know, but
so-
like now I have a podcast as well, right?
Okay,
So,
Pitted.
yeah.
That's
I'll invite you guys on.
And I
there.
did come up with the idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's Joe as well.
We'll work around that.
But
right?
the moral of the story is bonfires are awesome.
Yeah.
Day or night, really. Night is preferred, probably. You want to have them when it's necessary. It makes you feel like real cavemen.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Again, have some brews with your boys or with your family. Nothing better than a good bonfire. That's my first pick.
Cheers.
In the activities draft. Rudy, you're up next again. That's how
turn,
this works. You got the second pick in the draft here.
I have one already. I don't even have to think about it.
Really?
Yeah. It's something I've got into recently. This might make me sound like a hillbilly, but I was not like this before this year. All right. I swear, COVID has done things to me that I would have never expected.
Yeah,
okay,
it's changed
so
you.
yeah, it has
For the worse, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely downhill, only downhill. I think we were trudging up for a little bit, but
Rudy downloaded TikTok recently, and
he's been falling apart.
His mannerisms, his humor has changed so drastically and so quickly. It's just been really concerning.
I don't think he would have ever barged into the middle of a podcast if he hadn't downloaded TikTok.
What's that thing you always do at work?
Oh, I'm not gonna do it.
You just do that, please?
Okay. All right.
We're not gonna do that again.
What was your pick? We didn't even get to your
Okay,
pick.
okay, yeah. So totally made me a hillbilly. This is totally my new thing. I'm into guns. All right. I like skeet shooting.
Nice.
That's my summer activity.
Very good. Joe and I were just talking about skeet shooting. We're talking about how unbelievably sunburnt we got shooting with you guys on Monday.
This is the exact 5-person group that we went skeet shooting with. Exactly, yes.
We have 5 guys in this room.
5 guys, burgers and fries.
Yeah, we have Rudy here on the podcast. The other 2 not even interested in this podcast whatsoever. That proves how good this podcast really is, that people are here to see it live. And they couldn't care about the podcast.
All right.
Well, yes. We did go shooting on Monday. And Rudy, you've recently taken up shooting.
Yeah. Well, I've always been good at it. But it's just one of those things, like when you come back to it, right? You know, you just realize it's kind of like, you're a piano prodigy as a child growing up, right?
Yeah.
And then
you're saying you're a shooting prodigy.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm just like throwing an analogy out there. Okay?
That's what it sounded like.
So like piano prodigy, right? Mm-hmm. And so you grow up, you find other activities, you kind of grow out of it. But later on in life, you come back to it, and then you're just like, where have you been all my life? Yeah. And then you're like, all right.
How did I ever live without
Exactly.
shooting things?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That was one of my picks too.
Yeah, well, there you go. Stole one.
So
yeah,
I still feel like I'm gonna have a better draft than all of you guys. But Joe, what's your pick here? The second pick.
My second pick in this draft is gonna be actually camping.
Oh,
what's that? Okay. No, I'm serious. And Joe hates camping. I know that.
No, I
him.
don't. Okay. I don't hate camping.
Joe hates outside camping. So
I already know where he's coming from. I do.
I just said that camping's not that good. It's overrated.
Okay. My wife and I like camping a lot. We have a family camp every year, and it's really good. So we enjoy it a lot, and so that's.
Yeah. Rudy, I feel like you have something to say about camping.
I'm just curious what your cons are for camping. I don't understand.
I don't mind camping. I've camped all my life. Camping has actually been a big part of my life, probably more than you guys even. But,
Truth comes out.
I've camped a lot, and I do enjoy camping. I'm serious. But the way I just think it's a little overrated. Like, it's not as fun as like it's just going outside to relax or whatever, and making your life harder than it needs to be. It's like we have all these things that are good, and now I have nowhere to poop.
Yeah.
We're in the woods.
Yeah, I see that.
It's like we've solved this problem already.
You're not
and
wrong.
We're going back in time.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll go camping. I don't care. If you guys want to go camping right now, I'll go camping.
All right, let's go.
But I'm not really in the mood right now. No, but it's just, I don't know. It's not as good as people make it out to be. Some people are like, their whole identity is camping. You know?
Yes, dude. You got the camping stickers on the back of your truck, your car.
Exactly. Yeah. I just have the no club sticker on the back of my truck.
Dude, straight up.
So, yeah.
Rep that, man.
Rep that no club.
Straight up.
Is it my turn? Yeah. Final pick in the draft. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So I went with Bonfire for my first one. I was gonna go with Mow the Lawn, but we've talked about that. I feel like we've talked about that on the podcast already, so I'm not gonna get into that.
I do like to get into that a little bit.
I love maybe we'll get into it after the draft. I love mowing the lawn, man. Nothing like mowing the lawn. Nothing like a fresh mow.
Talk to me a little bit about your
You can stand in your
mowing.
backyard with your hands on your hips, and you can be proud that you have such a beautiful lawn.
Yes,
I like that fresh grass smell.
Yeah.
A little allergic to that, not gonna lie. But I love mowing the lawn.
Are we talking push mower or lawn
mower?
No,
I'm talking push, baby.
All right.
If I had a bigger lawn, probably riding.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it'd be as much fun if it was riding.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's not my pick. My pick, and this is a good one, is spike ball.
I knew it.
Oh, come on.
I knew it. And that was going to be my second pick, but I was like, that's kind of lame. Rudy already said volleyball. That's the same thing. Now. Spike ball on the beach or on the grass?
I'm talking anywhere. I can have all. I can have it all.
All right.
You can't play spike ball on the beach.
You can. No, it's harder.
It is a lot harder on the beach.
Rudy was actually talking to me about something spike ball, but you can only your second hit has to hit the net. It makes it more challenging. I think we should do that next time.
Yeah, that's how my other friends played it.
Really?
Yeah, it was completely different, but it made it way more intense.
A lot of people play like that anyways. Because some people aren't very good at setting and stuff.
Okay.
So it's like second hit.
Yeah.
It's just automatic. But spike ball is my favorite sport, I think. Just recently discovered it a few years ago. It's just sweeping the globe. Everybody loves it.
Yes.
You know, there's an app, and you can connect with other local spike ball players. And
no way.
And then link up. You can link up
Dude, we should make a spike ball podcast.
That's sick, dude.
It's the second podcast idea we've had on in this segment.
Having conversations around a little spike ball net.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you just hear.
Everybody should get mic'd up and
You just hear like crashing into the grass. But spike ball is incredible. It's the best sport. It's like volleyball, like Rudy said, but except it's way better than volleyball.
Yeah.
It's like actually fun. So I think that's the best draft out of us all. I'm not gonna lie. I got bonfire, spike ball. Rudy had beach volleyball and shooting.
Yeah.
And Joe had. Sorry, it was just such a bad draft. I just was forgetting already. What was your first one? Again? Golfing. Ooh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Golfing and camping. Ooh, kind
they
of fell
were
apart
actually
there.
both, I think, better
at
than
the end.
mine.
Golfing, camping. Rudy, you're not feeling great about your draft?
No, I did like it, but now like camping and golfing I can do without. But
Really?
no, I was into golf until you guys made fun of my form, and I think that really just took down my ego so much that
good.
yeah, I probably won't be playing a lot this year. So
Okay. Well,
that's where I'm at.
That's
with
why he
golf.
shoots now. It's rage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the aspect I like most about golf is just the outfit. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I love.
You are good at putting on a good fit.
You know what I'm saying?
You have drip, I
Yeah,
would say,
heck
for
yeah,
sure.
dude.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Rudy always dresses to the nines everywhere he goes. We'll be hanging out at somebody's house, and we're all wearing sweatpants. And actually, Henry dresses nice a lot of the time too. But maybe it's just your family thing. You guys are just related, so.
I don't know.
But you guys always dress so nice. Like me and Joe will dress like homeless men, and
Okay, it's pushing it a little bit because I honestly think I always wear a good pair of jeans and a nice T-shirt. And I think
I
that's
usually do too. But we don't dress as good as these guys.
Okay.
These
No,
cabs.
you dress nice. You just put a sweater over it. That's
Yeah,
what.
Rudy's not wearing a sweater. He's
Yeah.
usually wearing like a button up to whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
Like we could be watching UFC and it's like midnight, and Rudy's wearing a button up T-shirt like he just came from like a bar mitzvah.
It's a business casual. That's what I'm going for. You know what I mean?
Rudy lives his life
Yeah.
business casual.
You know, work
Very
never
good.
takes a break. You know?
And if we were to wrap things up here with Rudy, I don't think there's any better way you could wrap it up. Rudy lives his life business casual.
That's it.
Rudy, we appreciate you coming in. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, Rudy. I don't know if you have anything you want to say before we kick you off the podcast.
Honestly, just a quick shout out to my entourage that came with me, Justin and Henry. You know, they killed it back there.
Okay.
That's about it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd
Thanks.
like to thank my mom and dad.
Very good.
the academy.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know if you guys enjoyed Rudy. Rudy, we enjoyed.
Don't hear this.
Okay. We still have to wait for. We have to pay Rudy for this.
Yeah, this
So,
is
We're gonna be in contract discussions
Exactly.
after this. But Rudy, thank you guys. Thank
Hey,
you. Just not
cheers.
you guys. Thank you
Cheers.
so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again.
All right.
Maybe on better terms.
I had a lot of fun. Next time, invite me
Very
instead
good.
of myself.
All right. Thank you, Rudy.
Yeah. Cheers.
And that wraps up our show. We had it all on this show. We talked sunburns. We talked, I don't even remember what we talked at the beginning of the show. We had Rudy come in and really disrupt the status quo. We talked football a little bit, tried to get some football involved here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I always say, like and subscribe if you guys enjoy the show. Share the podcast with your friends if you like football or if you like chaos involving a good friend. And make sure you guys give us a 5-star rating, 5-star review, and subscribe. Follow us on social media @_Average Joe Show. Joe, I don't know if you have anything you want to say before we wrap up the show. It's a no from Joe. So we will catch you guys on the next one.
It's a big man thing. You get me, fam.